So thank you so much for being here for day one of Design ADAC. Just a reminder, everyone, please pick up a copy of your event guide. It's located in the back in the entry halls there. We have lots of great events this week, and we have a centralized registration this year in the pre-function area. So if there's any events that you're not already registered for and you want to be a part of, just grab one of our team members and they'll help you out. Don't forget to see this Market's installment of our Behind the Windows. Michael Habachy has designed one of our Behind the Windows. All right, who's talking? Y'all know that's so rude. Don't do it. Thank you. Michael Habachy has designed one of our Behind the Windows this time, so make sure that you all go and check that out. We have a bunch of our installations that are just have art and really cool, fun things that you'll go see. The locations are in the event guide, so go check that out. Have some fun with us on social media. Our hashtag is DesignADAC. Our handle is @ADACAtlanta. When y'all are sharing things and using that hashtag, we're going to be sharing it back, and we're going to show how much fun we're having this week. So please engage with us. We love it. I want to thank our media partner today, Atlanta Magazine and Atlanta Magazine's Home. There's issues in your chairs, so take those issues with you. And I want to thank our showroom partner today, that's German Kitchen. We're going to have a reception with our fabulous panelists after today's presentation. That's Suite 208, so come join us upstairs in German Kitchen after this. And now, with that, I'm going to turn things over to Betsy Riley, who's the editor-in-chief of Atlanta Magazine and Atlanta Magazine's Home.
Yay. Well, thank you guys for coming, and I'll kick things off by just introducing our panelists. Here to my left is Tamar Telahun. She was born in Ethiopia of Eritrean. I do that every time. Eritrean parents. And she is both a designer and she owns a restaurant, so she has really great perspective. Her work reflects her modernist sensibility and her diverse background. She says, "My personal style is elegant and eclectic, drawn from the people and places that are part of me. I see through the eyes of several cultures at once. It is a gift to me, which I pour into my work." She enjoys guiding clients through the design process by learning about them and encouraging them to think outside the box to create a final product, a solution, in fact, that is elegant and simple, bold and defining, sophisticated and unique. And then we have Vivian Bencich. Vivian has been practicing interior design for over 25 years. She graduated from Georgia Tech with a master's degree in architecture and is a registered interior designer in the state of Georgia. She is the founding principal of Square Feet Studio based in Atlanta, where she has worked for most of her career. Recent and repeat clients include Emory University, developers Alan Morris, Jamestown, and Paces Properties, and notable chefs Kevin Rathbun, Linton Hopkins, and Ryan Smith. Her work has been featured in publications such as Dwell, Wallpaper, and Interior Design. Vivian has been happily married to John, so he's here somewhere. Her partner at Square Feet Studio for almost 30 years. And then we have Smith Haynes.
I know, right?
30 years.
Not yet.
Almost.
Smith Haynes is the founder of the design studio that bears his name, a team of collaborative interior designers, architects, and industrial designers creating restaurants, hotels, and public spaces. With over 2 decades of experience, Smith continues to bring a certain romanticism to bear in the spaces he creates. His studio is known for bringing exceptional intuitive insight and lots of custom detailing to their work. He recently launched a New York office, and you can find his studio's work nationwide.
Yay.
Hey. And then finally we have Michael Habachy. Michael has decades of experience creating luxurious interiors and custom furnishings, making him a master of his craft. His extreme passion for design, strong work ethic, and ability to develop excellent client relationships are the foundations of his success. His career began while he was studying for a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Interior Design at Georgia State, and he worked at a custom metal fabrication studio where he learned how to design and build furniture. Those skills proved invaluable when he launched his own interior design firm, specialized in creating tailor-made pieces to perfectly match each client's needs. He's been expanding his brand ever since, designing tile and textile collections, developing furniture lines, and opening a stunning showroom in ADAC. Michael's interiors have been published in local, national, and international magazines and have received multiple awards from the ASID. So thank you guys all for help. The idea for this panel sort of started with a piece we did in Atlanta magazine in the dining section back in January. And Atrium, which is Smith Haynes' studio project, had recently opened in Ponce City Market, and it's just this amazing space. It's inspired, has some French, I shouldn't describe it, you could describe, but some Art Deco influence, beautiful murals, hand-painted tile, and it's just sort of a magical space to be. And we realized that a number of restaurants had recently opened in Atlanta that have a very dramatic, colorful interior. And we're big believers in the three's a trend philosophy, so we're like, this is a moment. And I don't know if it was, people were tired of, after COVID, they just wanted to have some fun, and or if it's Atlanta's evolution as a multicultural space or a national trend. But it's an interesting phenomenon to ponder. We don't have the answer for it, but maybe we'll come up with it today. But anyway, we thought it would be fun to get together with the people who design restaurants and see what you guys think about it. And first, to sort of help us with this, guide the discussion, I thought I would ask you guys, for a show of hands, how many of you have actually helped design restaurant interiors? Okay. So we've got a little bit of both. So the first thing I would ask, which is sort of what I would ask on designing any interior, is where do you get your inspiration? Where do you start?
I think it should go that way first.
Well, I get inspiration from so many things. I absolutely, my wife and I love to travel. She's a journalist for CNN International, and she's kind of turned me on to traveling around the world, and she's taken me to some pretty exotic places. And every time we travel, we learn about the culture, and then, of course, I've got to go see all the best restaurants and hotels. And so I mean, I just think that's the greatest inspiration. But then I also get a lot of great inspiration from, architects and designers that have been creating beautiful spaces and furnishings as well. Our showroom, Habachy Atelier, we represent a lot of brands that sell iconic designs from the 50s, 60s, 70s. And I just love these timeless designs, and we like to incorporate those in our projects. And so I would say a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. Smith?
Are we going
I guess we are.
Yeah.
Not with all questions, but with this one.
So I have a very intuitive way about my studio. And really the inspiration comes for a project out of the relationship with the client, understanding what they really want and like what they're driven by, the places that they've gone in the world, I have a client in the back row here that, just sent me pictures from France, and he was in Ghent and a number of towns, and, these are the colors I'm drawn to, and this is the feeling. And so when we start a project, really we ask the client to come to the table with a Pinterest board and real feelings behind why they want what they want. So that's where we start. And where we end up is an amalgamation of them and us and our abilities, their budget.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the above, everything that they just said. Our office is very collaborative, and so we've always said, the best ideas could come from the contractor, the craftsperson, a designer, an architect, definitely the client. And we always want to know what they're dreaming about, for the restaurant. And we've worked, in a big, small, different size restaurants, and I think the best clients, come to us with 15 ideas. I know we used to say Sid Mashburn's an early client for us, and he had enough ideas for, 5 boutiques. And some of the best clients come with all that, and it's an editing process. So that's the one thing I will add is I think we're also inspired by everything. But you have to edit it down so it hangs together, and that is the design process right there.
Right.
But the word dream,
Yeah.
if you can address the dream, then you get somewhere.
Yes.
Do you think, do most clients come to you with a dream for what they want, or do they just want?
The restaurant clients are creatives.
Yeah.
They're food people.
It's a little different.
It's a different type of creative, but it's got to be about the food. So yeah, I think every one of ours.
So unlike a residential client who sometimes doesn't know what they want, you find that the restaurant.
They have opinions.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, an important part of Tamar's bio that we did not put in there is she owns restaurants. And she owns Fidel Bistro with her brother, right? Brother here at Briarcliff and Claremont area. And so when you were creating, you opened that 18, 19?
Yeah, 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your vision when you created that space? I assume you were probably, since you're an interior designer, you're probably in charge.
Yes,
Yeah.
I cheat a little there, so it's much easier. I think everything they said, I think we all apply that. The only thing that changes for restaurants is that typically people have an idea of what they want versus residential. I think residential was not my favorite thing to do. Vivian and I were talking about that earlier, because people have the tendency of changing what they want, because they're seeing someone else's house and they see something in magazines. Restaurant design for me, I'm not sure for the panel, but for me it was easier to, even doing consultation for people, it was much easier to have a direct one-on-one and a defined step-by-step, because they're not looking at another restaurant trying to copy them. So they want a fresher, newer idea. So for me, as far as my own restaurant, it's a lot, we changed it from a Mediterranean restaurant because the neighborhood was changing. So this concept was supposed to be in Buckhead. So that complicated it because the design had to kind of shrink a little bit to fit the space. But as far as what motivated me, it's my background. I'm from Eritrea. I was born in Ethiopia. I came here when I was 13. I've lived in DC, New York, LA, moved to Italy for a while, came back. Did I say Houston? Yeah, I was in Houston at some point. So it's the people you come across, it's the cultures you meet, it's the people. But traveling, I think, like Michael, plays a big role for me. I travel a lot and I grab everything I can, and that helps me to connect with different people because I'm able to connect to them from a background perspective, not just creative. So then they open up a little more. So they're able to say, well, my grandmother had this thing. Okay, to self. Her grandmother had a pan that she likes. Maybe I could figure out bringing in some worn out pan that she feels connected to. So, you work around what they're telling you, but you bring in, like Smith was saying, that your style and your perspective as well.
So it can start with as specific thing as like one object that just kind of.
For me,
Yeah.
it really could. It could be, for me, for my restaurant, I used an opportunity to teach people. The normal person would think an Ethiopian and Eritrean person looks like this. We really don't. We're very diverse. Eritrea has only 5 million people, but Ethiopia has 150 million. So you have tribes and ethnic groups that are completely different. And so I wanted to represent the underrepresented group of people from both countries. So I used images that was a little more shocker than what everybody expected. So I went the opposite direction because I can take the risk, it's mine.
Yeah.
Designing for a client, I would have to get their permission to make sure that they want to be daring and make a statement too. So,
Is it? Sometimes I know, restaurant interiors, they tell a story. I mean, The Optimist is one that, another one of Smith's
I was
projects.
just there last night. So
It
odd.
has a very definite narrative
Yeah.
line to it. But I guess, do you guys, and this could be anybody, do you always look for that kind of narrative line, or can it be just, I don't know.
I'm gonna
The projects are better if you have it. We call it a backstory.
Yes, of course. When we start a concept, like for an initial client meeting, I'm big into words, but images, words, and I do like to write. The office knows I like to write about the project at the beginning, and then you've got images that go with that, and then at the end, what did it turn into?
Yeah,
and what
see if
does-
it holds.
Yeah.
See if it
Does it
holds,
hold?
or maybe something else blooms, hopefully, that's even better. But I do think with restaurants, I hate the term themed, but there's a story.
Yeah, the
Definitely.
concept for the Optimist, we found this old, what are the buildings called? The barrel top buildings that
Like a
the
bowstring
Optimist-
truss.
Yeah. So we found that building, and it had an office ceiling, so it had flat ceiling, but Ford and I got up on a ladder and saw that, the inside was there. And we had imagined that building was sitting on a dock at the port of Savannah. So that was the beginning of the narrative. So, and he came up with it. I mean, he's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's good to have brilliant
It's
clients
beautiful.
with money.
Yes.
What you want.
Ideas,
Oh, yes.
ideas, and they can afford
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah.
Yes.
We did a little cafe restaurant on Peachtree called El Viñedo, and the owner was in hospitality and had never opened a restaurant or cafe in his life before, and he had an affinity for like South American wines and traveled throughout South America and Central America, and he had always wanted to open his own cafe that was a wine bar serving South American cuisine and wines from that area. So we really dug into that and researched more about, okay, where are those places? Mendoza is known for great wine in Argentina. So we started looking up all the restaurants and the wineries in those areas and learning about those restaurants and how they were designed, and we wanted to bring that inspiration. And so we started, we actually ended up incorporating a lot of those elements. We were working with artisans from Argentina to make some of the goods. The pottery came from Argentina, like the coffee cups. And then we took inspiration for the wine rack and looked into the gaucho culture of Argentina.
Nice.
And all the where you put the wine bottles in are leather straps, which is inspired from the gaucho
yeah, I love
kind
that.
of aesthetic, which was a lot of fun. And we have bar stools from Uruguay, which are hand-stitched and wrapped in leather, and then these beautiful hammered copper pendants from Mexico. And that was really a big part of telling the story, is bringing those artisans into the space and kind of, transporting people there, when they're visiting.
Yeah, not everybody can travel. So to create a space where they feel like they're in Argentina or they're in Cuba or they're in Eritrea or whatever, I think our job should be to really figure out a way to connect the world together. And if I could do it through a design, even if I can make it contemporary, I still have a lot of elements that would be antique pieces that are from 200 years old or 500 years old from a different town in Ethiopia or an Italian restaurant, and there's this Sicilian basket that someone had left somewhere. It connects us with other people, and so sometimes everything new doesn't have to happen. I think when you're importing things, it makes you feel like you're actually in Argentina because
That
you're
can
sitting
even
in that
happen
place.
right here in Atlanta.
Yeah, so that's my point. Like a restaurant in Atlanta that makes you feel like you're in Argentina. I think that's
When we were working on Kimball House, our clients, and we always talk to them, do you have the appetite to sort of go the distance? And those folks definitely did. And they had, dreams to resurrect this fine hotel lobby where the barman takes
Yeah.
care of you. And of course, that meshed, it's not super linear, that's meshing with a very old train station from 1860 that was moved in downtown Decatur. And the really great part of the story is the original Kimball House was downtown at 5 Points in Atlanta. And probably about a year in, the owners got a call from a family here in Atlanta that had two, if you go to Kimball House, in the window that faces west are two, like, I don't know, about 30-inch tall bronze statues that were in the original Kimball House that was torn down.
Wow.
And they're perfect there. I had put a blue and white vase there just being decorator, but when those came in, they were part of the original. So there's the story right there. A family had these, and I think they were illuminated. They were on a like baluster or something. And they had, that made the story complete.
Well, going back to like sort of the Max idea, what do you think about this moment in time? Do you think people are trying to create interiors that sort of transport you a little bit more? Maybe it's because we've been stuck at home. You want something like that. But then there have been a lot of trends in restaurant designs. I mean, trends just like there are in interiors, like industrial chic, you just thought it was never, ever going to go away.
Right.
And so do you think this is is this sort of more freedom a trend, or I don't know, what's your feeling about trends and restaurants and where we are like right now? Sorry, that's a really big
Vivian
question.
and I tend to look
And
at
it's
each
not
other.
like you haven't been creating these. I mean, one of the reasons you're here is because you've all created unique spaces, and you guys are not trend followers. So I'm probably asking you about the very thing you try not to do. But
Yeah, the trend thing can be hard to even follow that because, some projects start here and they take a year to complete, so
Yeah.
fashion trends
Exactly.
are different,
Exactly,
and
Rose gold, thankfully it's coming
we did say at one point, if somebody asked us to do like a reclaimed wood wall after we did Barcelona, it's like, please don't make us do another wood wall.
Yeah.
But I think there's the time and the place for the wood wall, it's just not all over, not all the time.
During the pandemic, I watched a lot of important people that I follow talk. A lot of people did Instagram lives, and there's a fellow that I've been following for years. His name is Ben Pundle, and Ben worked for 20 years with Ian Schrager. Ian Schrager is Paramount Hotel, and he's now the Edition Hotels. I mean, very important people in the hospitality world. So I'll never forget, they were talking about, he said to Ian, is it, are the hotels ever going to come back? Or, are all the hotels going to change? Or what's going to happen to the industry? And Ian said, oh yeah, it's coming back, and it's coming back big. And then Ben talked about his whole world. He works in this world of specialty hotels in Ibiza and in very fascinating places with very fascinating people. And he really believed that because creativity had been rather tamped down during a time when we were all locked in, that it was really going to burst open. And one of the very first things that Ian Schrager did upon getting out of COVID was in New York City, they launched bars that have circus acts, and people are, and this is still happening. There are nights at the House of Yes, House of X. These are trends. These are like cultural trends. This isn't the material trend, which is one thing.
Yeah.
But Ben Pundle said, my creative tribe is going to come out bigger than you've ever seen them. And I think it's happening. And I think it's why people responded to Atrium. The ceilings are even pink and green, And the client was willing to go there. But there are certain industry leaders that are just like, no. Ian Schrager's is one of them,
But I mean, I think that a lot of design also stands the test of time,
Yes.
and I mean,
You wanted to,
Smith,
for
well,
sure.
Smith has a lot of
You want to do
great,
timeless things. Yeah.
I mean, both Square
I don't
Feet
know
and
if our
Smith-
pink and green Ponson City Market restaurant would be timeless.
Well, okay,
But
I
it
mean,
was of
it's
the
fun
moment.
and, you know, I mean,
Bust out a little bit.
exactly. And I love Super Rico, which is kind of over the top and fun, and it's got some trendy elements, but it's still like an experience. But honestly, I think it's about creating a balance, you know, between some really fun, new, innovative ideas, but then mixing in timeless design and the classics. That
Yeah.
literally, I mean, we have lines.
If you want a place that's going to be open for 15 years, you got to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there
You
are
gotta
restaurants.
You have to lean into the leather supports for the wine bottles in the Argentinian plates, and you got to go there.
Well, and JCT and the Optimist, those are great classic restaurants that I don't think in 10 years from now,
It won't
people
change.
would be like, oh, that's so 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so.
It's really kind of
So-
nothing, actually.
Yeah.
The Optimist is, I mean, I was thinking about the Optimist, that repetitive light fixture cost $175 a piece because we really didn't have that much money.
Yeah.
Even,
Oh, wow.
even then, you know, that was only the second one in for Ford.
Oh,
So, no, it was the third, it was the second one, actually.
But going back to.
So it had to be.
Your
had to be
mention of,
classic.
yeah, but going back to your mention of industrial, for example, I don't think that, okay, yes, a lot of designers took it way too far and just did industrial everything, but, you know, if the space calls for industrial details, you know, if you walk into this beautiful old factory that's being converted into a
Yes.
restaurant, then of course you need to honor that, like keep the purity of that architecture, that building. Mix it, you know, you can mix other styles and
That's what I was going to say,
Yeah.
is that I think you can use, you know, maybe everybody's used to this very sleepy industrial coloring. Maybe bring in loud colors that someone else might not be thinking about, because then that wakes up the space. You know, you can
Yeah.
play with pictures and images that are wallpaper or whatever, but you can actually frame those things and use them as art pieces. So you give it a different, without changing the actual
Right.
structure of what it is, you could still upgrade it to make it look
100%.
timeless. Yeah.
And I feel
agree with
like blending styles is how you create your own personality. It's not an easy thing to achieve, you know, but honestly, like you can borrow styles, different styles from different areas and regions and times, and create your own, you know, so a different experience. And I think that's how you give a place personality, whether it's residential or commercial.
I mean, I think almost anything, and you know, as an editor, we sort of go through some of these similar creative questions. I think almost anything that's authentic, you know, is going to have value, and it may come and go as far as the popular culture goes. But if it's authentic, then it will have value permanently.
But our office, you know, will question what is authentic. So is it, and we try to narrow it to the found conditions of a place, the bowstring truss, the pan. It can be an object or it can be an architectural piece that's found there. And that's what gives it integrity. Because when we're working on projects, you know, the world is your oyster nowadays. We're in a very postmodern condition. We can buy whatever we want.
Yeah, right.
But that integrity, that authenticity has to, as designers, I think we all have to really be challenged because it isn't fashion.
Yeah.
It isn't trends. It's built for 15 years. Our clients are signing
Yeah.
5-year leases, 10-year leases. They're spending a lot of money. And one thing that we talk about too is, you know, you got to heat it and cool it because all the pretty wallpaper means nothing if you don't have the exhaust system working.
Right.
So there are so many pieces to it, and you know, 20% of it might be the pretty stuff up front. The flow's got to work.
Yeah.
All of those things work, and it all goes back to, you know, when I was first out of school, I was working on hospitals. It was a great firm, but we don't really want to go to the hospital. We want to go to restaurants. We want to go to hotels. We want to go to whatever nightclub you were talking about. You know,
With the circus.
that's fun. You know, we don't, and you know, there's just so many different types of restaurants. And we were talking earlier, it's our living room, it's our party space, it's our You know, it's so many things for people. It's joyful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to be sure we do have time to talk about the practical side of things because it's so important in restaurants. It's hard to know where to start. Let's start with acoustics. That's everybody's pet peeve as someone who eats in restaurants. Like, how do you have any sort of standard way you approach that? I mean, yeah, you don't want it to be dead quiet, but you want a little life, but you don't want it too noisy. And one time with Atlanta Magazine, we sent a writer around with the meter, and that was pretty enlightening. So, what's your advice for handling the acoustics?
I can weigh in here. I really feel like technology and design has come so far, and there are so many amazing manufacturers out there creating these great artistic panels that you can use in the ceiling or the walls. We have a board actually on Pinterest. You should check it out. If you're looking for acoustical, just call it acoustical walls. And we've got all these different dimensional designs. You can pick your felts and the different surfaces. You can print on it. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And you can create almost like sculptures that are sound absorbing. I mean, there's the old tricks of like putting acoustical under the tabletops and, you know, these things where you can hide certain acoustical elements. But several of them now can be a visual statement. A friend of mine, do you know Daniel Monnier?
Yes.
You know Daniel? So he developed a line called FACT, F-A-C-T, that is spectacular. I mean, it's just these great architectural panels that could work in a restaurant, it could work in a lobby, and he's just constantly coming up with new designs, and it's almost
That's
like
the fancy
origami in the
version.
ceiling. If you can,
That's the fancy version with a lot of budget. Or you could just go, hey, shut up! Come back in, because that's the reality. I love that, but how many people can afford that? So you've got to think about the other side, too.
Yeah.
I've
And
consulted
some
a lot of
places
places
it's good
that
to be loud. Some places.
It's just going to be loud. You're
There
gonna
was
have
an
to accept
article in
it,
the
yeah.
New York
Part of the
Times where
experience.
if you have tons of budget and you're in a tiny space, that's happened at one restaurant here in Atlanta that had carpet on the floor. We've talked to acoustical engineers. It's because I think the felt underneath really doesn't work because it's not where the voices are translating. But we were just in Palm Springs, and there were these great old school restaurants with carpet on the floor.
I love that.
You can hear, but it's hard to keep clean,
Yeah.
you know, because people are spilling everything.
Absolutely.
But that's the number one way to do it, is carpet
Yeah.
on the floor.
Lots
That's
of
the
rugs.
cheapest version
Oh, wow.
of the acoustic
On the
panels.
ceiling at
Yes, at Barcelona.
Barcelona.
Yes.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
put
but they don't,
carpet tiles on
Yeah.
the ceiling.
but they don't want to stay up there, but yeah, we got them. If you use like,
I didn't know you guys did Barcelona. I love that restaurant.
we did.
Great.
That was one of the first
The
restaurants.
one in Inman Park.
And that's
Yeah.
that's one that will always be like a great design. I feel
Yeah.
like it's very timeless. I mean, it reminds me of going to a great restaurant in Brazil in Rio
Yes.
or something.
Right. Well, the client was from Argentina, and it was their second or third restaurant, first one in the Southeast, and that we worked on it as the prototype. So we worked through every detail so they could take it and release it nationwide, or at least up the East Coast, I think.
I love ours.
But yeah, the tiles on the ceiling, that's nerve-wracking because I think we've experimented with that before. Those interface floor tiles weigh like 2 pounds a piece, and it is better to use a real acoustic tile, I think. But carpet on the floor,
We have a product we use called Clipso,
yes.
and it's not inexpensive. It looks like drywall ceiling,
Yep.
but it's superb.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Oh, yeah.
So it just looks like a clean.
Looks just like a drywall
surface
ceiling,
that you could
but it's about 4 inches thick. It has a micro-perforated sheet of material that's actually made of, I think it's made of like cotton and rubber, that kind of thing. But it looks like drywall.
Yeah.
It's great. Clipso, C-L-I-P-S-O, Clipso. It was developed in France for museums, for really spare museums. It's really the batting above the ceiling, above the micro perforation is 4 inches, and it was it just gives great acoustics.
Wow.
I like that. Definitely will research it.
And we mix it up. You know, we'll do a ceiling with multiple beams, and everything else will be calypso. And what we like is in sound systems, we like lots of bass, lots of woofers. Like, we want sound like you go to a club. If they want to turn it up, we want them to pound the music, and then but everybody can hear each other.
Yeah.
So that's when we're really
is
successful.
magic.
Yes, when the sound is to a high level with lots of bass, lots of medium, lots of bass, that you can almost feel the music, but you can still talk to each other. That's what we're looking for.
What about,
And you know, my career has been a long one, and in the beginning, you know, like, I was on a ladder stapling stuff to ceilings for people.
Yeah,
With
fabrics
people.
wrapped around.
Literally, you know,
God,
buying
I've done
quilts
that.
and padding
sometimes people
ceilings.
can't find
Well,
I mean, I started,
part
I
that-
you know,
it
I was
comes at-
scrappy.
I've done that twice.
I was scrappy.
I promise you, I get
Clients,
it.
Yeah.
we worked on Salt Yard, and we had big drapery panels from Paul Plus.
Curtains.
The
Yeah.
curtains helped to
Yeah.
divide, but at the end, those young clients were like, oh, we can't do it. We can't do it. It's too much money, because it sucks. You know, the kitchen's taking so much money back
Right.
there, and they bought new compressors and all that. And I said, you have to do it. You have to do it. Nobody wants to come in here and eat this great food. So they did it. And I think Jared worked with us and gave them a really good
Yeah.
deal on those huge panels.
I mean, I think curtains actually
Yeah.
soften up any space. Like,
Yeah.
it's like,
It's where you start.
for me, it's
In
almost like,
Yeah,
Incredible.
rug.
it has to be a standard in every project. Soften up the space, and one of my favorite restaurant cafes is Le Bon Noche.
Oh, yeah.
And I just love the design. It's by a company called Commune out of LA, and I just think they killed it with that design.
Yeah, it's a
And
beautiful space.
there's big, dramatic, kind of marigold-colored drapes in there that are impactful. So,
They had a
and
budget.
they also work as an acoustical.
And they had a great client.
And they
They
had
had a
a
client with
really
a
good
lot of
budget.
taste.
That's probably why I love
Big
it.
budget.
Yeah.
But-
What about seating? Like, that's another big issue. You know, do you have communal tables? Do you have the long banquette? How do you sort of navigate? I mean, does it depend on the concept you're going for? We want little intimate spaces, or we want a community space?
It depends on the dining model. You know what I mean? It depends. That's driven by a conversation with the chef and the manager.
What kind of
and-
food?
Yeah, because you don't want to have big communal tables and people having a 4-course dinner with service from the left and right.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think white tablecloth restaurants I love those, and we've relaxed so much, which I think is great. We're eating very fine food, you know, out in the back of Stable House in this gorgeous back patio
Yeah.
garden area. But I will say, I think that has to be a conversation with the chef, how you're going to do the seating. And of course, when you're doing a layout, you're trying to maximize, but you can't always know exactly how that's gonna be.
Space is very tricky, right? The chef or owner of the restaurant would like to pack it as much as they can because they want to be able to sit as many people. The other part, which is I think where I have a little more advantage than they do, is as a restaurant owner, I have been able to see, oh, okay, so I have this large space, but I really cannot have this many seats because I have to worry about the county and the capacity, what they're going to give me, with the areas of clearances. And so then I have to stop and think, okay, when you're beautifying a space, how much of it do you want to beautify and take up a space with the middle center table with this gorgeous flower? Do I take that away and put in a table? And then how much space am I creating between the people next door? I've realized after visiting so many restaurants at this point, no one cares. I could literally have this conversation with the person I don't know because they're that close to me, because they're not allowing you to go beyond the number of tables. So technically, a lot of restaurants will pack it and will ignore that. But that one time you get a visit, and the fire marshal shows up, it's a whole different story. Because then you get a call, oh my God, why didn't you tell me this can happen? I did. It was just the money part. So I'm on both sides and I can understand it and feel the pain, but
Yeah.
it's a very dangerous thing as a designer that we have to be careful about, because there's hazardous things that can happen in restaurants.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you don't create a space for them to get up and leave, then that's going to come back to you, not just the owner. So it's something to consider in a very, very serious matter. So I think
Also,
that's
also you have to consider, people with disabilities. I mean, ADA is a really important.
There are a lot of codes.
And they need to have the same experience as everybody else in a restaurant. I think that's, my father was disabled towards the end of his life, and I understood more so after seeing what he went through, to access certain, countertops and get around,
Yeah.
So, there's a really great documentary that the Obamas did. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but I recommend watching it. And it'll really make you a lot more compassionate and a better designer, I think. It's called Crip Camp.
Yes.
And it is such a good documentary. And it's about the revolution that happened in the late 60s with disabled people. And there were people that couldn't even use the restrooms in New York. Like, you couldn't find a way to get into a restroom.
Right.
There's no access for the chairs. And I really feel like, when you watch that documentary, you want to really work hard to make, those spaces accessible for them.
I just got a press release that Lazy Betty got this, what's it's called, sensory inclusive certification. And it's for, people who are autistic or people that have like early dementia, ways that help them not get overloaded by the, the sensory experience of a restaurant. Like, they can send video in advance so the person knows what the space is going to look like. They have like little kits that they can bring to the table, so they have something to touch and feel and do.
Love
It's
that.
just kind of amazing that
Yeah.
people even think of that, which is awesome.
That just elevates the experience for that person, and then for the families that are coming with them, you're taking the burden off. I am known, if you visit my restaurant, I walk away with people's kids all the time. I'm not even kidding you. I know one of my peoples is here. My husband will, please give the baby back. But I am known for that, and it's really because I come from a large family. I'm a baby of 6 kids, and most of my siblings have kids. I don't. My kids are 2 dogs and my businesses. I will stick to that. But I know how overwhelming my sisters are when they're traveling, so I often have to travel from LA to Dallas just to fly to DC with my sister, because she has 3 kids and her husband might be out of the country for work. So it's so overwhelming to take kids to the restaurant, and I see parents just, and I'm like, may I? I'm African, I'm used to the village mentality, may I? And they're just kind of like, and most of my friends are like, oh my God, she's doing this again.
Right.
But it gives them, I swear, it gives them a few minutes of enjoying their meal. And I walk away into the kitchen. I don't go all the way in, but I'll say, hey, I have a kid. And the kitchen staff knows. If I don't come in with a kid, they're like, what happened? Because it allows them, and now the kids are saying they want to come to this restaurant to their parents because it's fun for them, but those couple might have had 10, 15 minutes. And I'll visit each table as I usually do. I'll touch every table with the kid, but I just gave them a 15-minute break. So
That's amazing.
creating something like that is absolutely wonderful, because it allows the parents or the kids to have a little bit of peace and enjoyment too. So
Well, now I know where to tell my son and his wife to take them.
bring them. I don't guarantee giving it back though. So,
Well, depending on the day, that might be all right.
okay, deal.
Well, I want to be sure we leave some time for some questions. I think, is it time for questions, Katie? Okay, a few more minutes? Okay. How involved do you guys get with the kitchen? Like, is the kitchen just this whole other world and you don't really step in there, or does your design overlap? Obviously, Tamar, you have to go back both places, but.
I would say for designers to definitely learn a lot about the kitchen, because functionality is is much a higher priority than beautifying the kitchen. The kitchen doesn't need to be beautiful. It needs to be super clean. It needs to be accessible to clean.
Yeah.
So those are the issues that I see from people. Like I was saying earlier, I do a lot of consulting with designers, and I'll just consult strictly in restaurants and their design and the functionality of it. And oftentimes where it lacks is the kitchen. And then that doorway that leads you to the kitchen, a lot of accidents happen from and in and out of the kitchen. So I always tell people the kitchen doesn't need to be expensive. You don't need to get all brand new items. The kitchen doesn't need to have too many big things. The kitchen doesn't. So whatever it is that you need, it needs to be safe enough and it needs to be accessible for you to not to travel too far. So that's my advice for designers with kitchen is the kitchen is a very tough
For
place.
me, I think it's like, if you can see it, I'm going to be involved.
Yeah.
Because I'm more involved in how is it going to affect the overall aesthetic. And so a lot of times we're dealing with, the bar. I've done a lot of nightclubs and bars in my day as well as restaurants. Like, not as
They
many
were
restaurants.
all so
but,
beautiful. I
but
promise.
so we always would, design the bar, and we'd be thinking about, okay, what are the patrons going to see as they're up at the bar?
Yes.
I mean, and sometimes you have to work with the equipment supplier because they do what they do, I mean, they just throw whatever in there, and they don't care about how it's going to look. But if you can see it, we get involved. So.
Yeah, I see some bars with it, the bottles go way up to the ceiling. Looks really cool, but I'm like, nobody better ever order that. I can't imagine.
Most of the time, those are,
Those are
shows.
just for show.
Yeah.
Those bottles at the bottom.
Unless you're in Vegas and they have like trapeze artists.
So one of my bar lounges, it's called Therapy Lounge. Do not judge me. I probably needed therapy when I named it that. But they make fun of me and they say I built everything from my height. And I'm 6 foot tall, so they'll say, seriously, Tamar. And so every time we hire new people, my manager, who's also 6'4", would look at me and he will say, seriously, she's 4'11". How is this gonna work? So then we have to have a discussion about it. So yes, it's very important. I purposely didn't do it. It just because of the space, that's how it ended up working out. But yeah, it's important to keep that in mind as well.
All right, well, we'll have a few minutes, I think, for some
Okay,
questions. Katie's got the mic.
Yep, I want to make sure that we have plenty of time. We have some time, so if not, I just want to make sure if anyone has any questions. And remember to please wait for me to get to you with the microphone.
Each of you, it can be one you've designed or one you've visited. What is your favorite restaurant?
Oh, wow.
That's so hard.
Oh, I was going to ask.
This is a tough one.
I mean, that's so hard.
Oh my gosh.
There's just so many beautiful restaurants around,
really is.
I mean, and honestly, I want to thank all of these guys for creating and transforming Atlanta. I mean, 20 years ago, I'm a native Atlantan, and 20,
Seriously, you guys
seriously,
did.
like 20 years ago, like it was just more about the food than the ambiance, and restaurants were getting away with murder with like design. They were all hole in the wall, which I still like a good hole in the wall, but now, Atlanta's kind of really made its mark, and both of you have done so many amazing restaurants.
Sweet,
so.
thank you.
So,
In town, where? Just anywhere?
Oh, Deb,
It's like, what's your favorite child?
We're loving Servos in New York. Every time we go to New York, we eat there twice, 3 times. Amazing Mediterranean restaurant. We love Lila in town. We did design Lila, but we really just go with the food for the food.
Food's
We're
amazing.
people.
it has to always be about the food first.
it's-
I mean, I've
it's
heard
really
people
about-
say
it's
that
not about design.
you might get someone in once or twice to check out the design. Johnson, my daughter, used to complain. We love to go out, and the whole time, I mean, she was older than being carried around, but she
Where I wasn't around.
We were always pointing at everything, talking about the design the whole time. She's like, "Can you guys just focus on the food?" Gosh, how many places do we love? We love La Grata because that's old school Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't
there.
been there in
Been
a
there for a
long
long
time.
time.
And I'd say what experiences, you know, we were in New York at the Four Seasons, which is a just amazing, iconic restaurant, and you get to sit at the bar. I don't know if they've changed it since, but the original Mies van der Rohe stool there.
Yeah,
that Noel
is that
was
the-
the Four Seasons bar stool, I think is what they
Yeah,
call it.
yeah.
It's got the, you know, garden in the middle. I don't know if it's still the same, but we had an experience there that was just, you know, just an amazing icon of design. So, you know, and that's not a restaurant designer, that's Mies van der Rohe, who designed everything else.
Right. Oh, goodness. So it's funny when you said Optimist, and I was like, oh yeah, I meant to tell him I was just there last night, but I also got engaged there. So that space, yeah, the
You got
Optimist
engaged
holds
where?
at the Optimist.
Oh, wow.
So it holds a special.
Not last night.
No, no.
You were there last night. Okay, yeah.
But we were there last night, so when she mentioned it, and I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you.
Yeah.
It is one of my favorite restaurants in Atlanta. Everything is mixed up, and I don't know
Those
as
hush
artists
puppies.
if you guys feel
It
that.
does it to people.
Yeah, yeah, it does, it does. But when I think about restaurants and what my favorite places, there's like snippets of restaurant, like things that I like about a restaurant. So my brain has this mush of a bunch of restaurants I like, so it's just gonna come out as bleh. So I don't have like one thing I could say that would be like, oh yeah, this is my favorite restaurant, because I think I associate it with the food and the service. So sometimes I could go to a place and I'm just stunned by it, but when I walk out, I had forgotten about it because the food wasn't good and the service wasn't good.
True.
So that plays
Very
a big
true.
part in my brain. I couldn't
Service.
just look at it and go, it was so beautiful. We gotta go back. It's like, no, the food is horrible.
My wife and I travel a lot. If any of you ever want to message me and ask me for our lists for the cities we go to,
I think I'm gonna have
we have
to.
a great New York list. We have a great
Right.
Mexico City list,
Good
Oaxaca.
to know.
Oaxaca.
Yeah, San Francisco. Probably have 10 lists. So, but the best places to go.
I think you have a couple of
Sometimes
people
I'll
that
go
try to
visit, like,
get your
oh,
attention.
sorry.
Katie, no, I think Katie's running.
Okay, we've got one more over here.
Oh, you had a couple of people that were.
We've got one right here,
Oh,
and then
oh,
we'll come
okay.
down there.
Yep.
I felt bad there.
How do you guys get around the materials that we have to use, like in the bathrooms with the health code, like tiles and FRP board? Like, or have you used wallpapers, and how do you get? I know I see them in restaurants, but designing a restaurant, working with the health code, is like, listen, you gotta send me something that actually says, like, do you have other surfaces that you use in the bathroom areas or the kitchen, you know, the walls and stuff?
Yeah, it's tough to be compliant and to design beautiful stuff.
Yeah. There's a code where you have to do these horrendous like Schluter trims, but where the vertical tile meets the floor tile, and it's just rounded over. It's just so ugly. I mean, it's kind of hard to get around that one.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're paying off the person that's inspecting.
It really depends on who you got as an inspector.
I'm gonna go.
Because I've had 3 inspectors come at a job and 3 different requirements, and none of them were the same. Oh, wow. With each other. So that happens sometimes. The inspectors that come in, they'll give you different,
It's not consistent.
It's not, so
It
you don't
depends on
really
the
get.
jurisdiction.
Yeah.
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 But there's some wallpapers that they will allow you because it could be wiped down.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I typically stick with simplicity, because if it's going to cost the client more money because something didn't work, then I don't want my name to be tarnished from that because I didn't advise them well. So I try to be as simple as possible, beautiful, but very simple in the bathroom, and not go. Because there's little decorative things that you could do that the health department and code doesn't bother you with, that you can get away with, but it doesn't have to be something costly for them, you know?
Hi, this is so interesting. My question is this. Have you noticed industry trends that are coming out of COVID? You know, we went through the lockdown, then we started creeping out, and the dining, we were all so frantic to get out, and dining in restaurants changed so dramatically. Even here in Atlanta, places that have great climates, we all went outside. And in New York and DC.
That's the biggest trend.
They were doing
Yeah.
these little outdoor, tiny little spaces that were actually really fabulous.
Everybody's
It was
eating outside.
Snowing outside, but you were in your little hubby with a heater, and it was just delightful.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious if some of those trends.
QR
like we were
codes.
Talking about
Yep.
QR codes.
QR codes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fewer
Going
paper
to the
menus.
garden, to sit in the garden,
Yes.
that maybe
Yeah.
2 years ago, nobody really wanted to do that in somebody's backyard, but now it's lovely.
Yes.
What other things can you think
I
of?
mean, there's heaters and misters, you know, that help with your thermal comfort.
Sorry, I had something else.
Hold on, wait for my microphone.
Sorry, I meant to ask this at the same time. Has anything changed as far as what you're doing in kitchen design after COVID? Like people coughing, or, exposed food, or open kitchens, or is that all going away?
Not design-wise, but I think a lot more.
All that's been in
equipments
place,
that
sneeze
they need to
guards and
use.
things like that. It's, and a
Our
national,
health codes changed.
the
in-
sanitation is pretty
Yeah, it's
heavy
just you
duty.
have a lot more sanitation than you really
Yeah,
know
more-
what to do
more
with. Oh my
sanitizers
God,
everywhere.
it just doesn't end. And the wipers and I mean, it's. We have a rule in the kitchen when they go to the restroom, they'll go like this, so we see them leaving, and when they come back, they go like this, and they wash their hands, because that's us making sure that we don't forget. But now it's they're just things that have nothing to do with design, but you still have to create space for them to have those things. I think moving forward, this is going to be it. We're going to be using this. It's going to be part of the requirement.
I personally love the touchless faucets.
Yeah.
I
they're
love
great.
it too.
I mean, I know they annoy some people because, I mean, you just can't control the amount that comes out. But
Or
I
when it
think
comes
it's from
out.
a sanitary perspective, it
Yeah.
works well.
Okay, I think we've got one more question here.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the panel. Vivian and Smith, you both have been very successful in creating authentic spaces, and we touched on it just briefly at the beginning. If you could just sum up in your process, other than just materials, from a soulful place, how do you bring authenticity to your restaurants?
Talking to the client, Alan. And we did carpet in your restaurant, right? And that helped with those 20-foot ceilings.
We've both done a restaurant for Alan.
Authenticity, again, it's mining the story and talking more with the client.
Like mining it, like digging it.
Yes,
Yeah,
you had
digging
the
in.
great idea for the pendants, and that had that story about the stacked wood for the
They were like
bourbon
tobacco.
making.
They were like tobacco stickers, or they were bourbon.
Bourbon, yeah.
From bourbon
So-
barrels.
And it relates
Yeah.
back to the cuisine and the bar program, always. I think it's that long process of mining the story and the place.
And all the details have to have a language that are driven by the backstory.
Yeah, for sure.
If all the details are vetted, like if it's just not like a designer wanting to do something because they saw it,
That's never going to hold. I feel
Yeah.
like it's got to be that process with the client.
and then it works.
Yeah,
I don't know if the word is authenticity, but
Yeah.
for me, it's like, does it feel real?
yeah.
Is it real? Is it? And really, we're set designers.
Yeah, 'cause
I
you walk
really
away.
respect
And then
people
You're stuck with that space.
who do what they
And one
do.
thing we haven't even
But we're
touched
really
on,
set designers.
The lighting.
We're
is
designing
so-
a set.
And with Michael's work, the
For a moment,
lighting.
So if you're doing a movie, we're
Oh,
really
yeah.
we're designing a movie. Every time we do a restaurant,
Yeah.
we're designing.
That's going to play out nightly
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a really
or
good
daily.
show.
Those are the hard ones, daytime. But like I was talking about with your projects, that dramatic lighting,
Yeah.
which we haven't even touched on lighting, but it's a big part of it.
Absolutely.
Okay, I've been promised one fast question.
And it's the last one. Thanks. So we live in this big world of social media. Are you guys seeing that new restaurant owners are asking or requesting part of the restaurant experience to have Instagrammable moments?
Oh, yeah.
Or things of like if you have like, we want the client to walk in and take a picture here, or have this kind of this is what we want branded on social media to always pop up when they look for a restaurant
It's
or
not
things
going
like
Oh,
that.
big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is, you know,
Le Bon Noche was the
People love
first
it.
one I had heard about that, and Lila too. But I mean, I just think make it beautiful, and again, you want people to look beautiful in the space, so they want to take selfies or
Yeah.
whatever they do.
Or show off their shoes by the logo. That's a trend. So, I mean,
Yeah.
give them a place where they can do that. So-
what are your favorite, like, selfie Instagram? Like, what do,
You know, you always have to go to the bathroom.
neon?
Yeah.
Yeah, you photograph
Yeah.
yourself in the bathroom.
Yeah.
What else? I have this thing with floors.
Yes.
What else?
Yes.
Well, I
I
think
mean,
we're going to have
sometimes
to.
it could be a mural or like just
Right.
a little vignette that you create that, you know, people can get
Or
glammed
some
up.
sort of a neon sign that actually has a slogan
Yeah,
too.
that's true.
That's like, you know, I'm definitely
Little
in my
Trouble was
20s,
like-
so I don't get it. But,
yeah.
you know,
the
what it's
most
for that.
Instagrammed
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
that's in there.
Absolutely.
Colonnade.
Yeah.
Ian.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Hi.
thank you guys for coming. And two things. One, last year we started a new program called the Georgia Design Awards, and we are getting ready to take nominations again. And we expanded our contract categories this year, so we're excited about that. And please join us at the for the reception at the German Kitchen Center. It's 208. So thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.